In ancient times, our ancestors believed in curses much more often and used it constantly. They left behind many cursed objects, texts, and even places on our planet. Reading, touching, and being there is dangerous to the health of not only yours, but also your relatives. Those who left curses strongly recommend avoiding them. In this video, I will tell you about the most creepy and terrible ancient curses that are dangerous even today. Hi friend, you're on the KirTop channel. The Secret of the Cursed Garden. Not only ancient artifacts and inscriptions can carry curses. Deep in the Armenian mountains, in an abandoned valley, a mysterious garden has been discovered, which archaeologists estimate is more than 800 years old. According to ancient local legends, each plant in this garden has its own curse, imposed by a once powerful magician. The garden abounds in rare plants, some of which are not found in other parts of the world. Scientists and botanists are puzzled as to how these species could survive for so long without human care. Locals, meanwhile, avoid this place, telling stories of strange accidents befalling those who trespass on the garden's plants. The mystery of the cursed garden in Armenia is of keen interest both among researchers and among lovers of mysticism. However, so far archaeologists are in no hurry to study this area, because in addition to plants, there should also be archaeological artifacts that belong to the ancient people who lived there and cursed this place. Inscription from the necropolis of Sheikh Abdel Kurna. Sheikh Abdel Kurna, an ancient necropolis in Luxor, Egypt, is famous for its tombs with inscriptions intended to deter robbers. The National Museum of Scotland houses a unique slab with one of these texts. It says, "Pass by and don't touch even the slightest stone here. If you come across this stone, do not step over it. Know that the gods who rest in the mountains are gaining strength every day, despite the fact that their stones are carried away." Written in hieratic script, this warning states that removing even one stone from the tomb will anger the gods and spirits of the departed. However, given that the slab was moved to Scotland without apparent consequences, it seems that the ancient warning may not be taken seriously. Busbys stoop chair. At Thirsk Museum in North Yorkshire, an old wooden chair with a dark history hangs on the wall. This ominous object is known as the Busbys stoop chair or the dead man's chair. They say that this damned chair brings death to those who dare to sit on it. In 1702, Thomas Busby was convicted of murder. According to one version, he was arrested in a local tavern where he was sitting on his favorite chair. At the time of his arrest, Busby cursed it. Over time, the old Busby pub seat began to be linked to the untimely death of those who sat on it. For example, several Canadian pilots sat on this chair during World War II and were soon killed in bombing raids. Although mortality among wartime pilots was already high, several fatal car accidents and other tragic deaths in the 1970s were directly linked to stool. Eventually, the pub owner donated it to the museum to prevent further tragedies. The Curse of Amenhotep's Tomb. In the Valley of the Kings in Egypt lies the tomb of Amenhotep, shrouded in dark legends. An ominous inscription is carved on the walls of the tomb, warning of dire consequences for those who dare to disturb the peace of the pharaoh's eternal sleep. According to the curse, any robber will lose his earthly wealth, die in the sea waves, burn in flames, leave no descendants, be deprived of burial, and die of hunger. In addition, the bones of the intruder are threatened with destruction, foreshadowing a terrifying fate in the afterlife. And this is only part of the terrible predictions. Other horrors await anyone who dares to disturb the pharaoh. Of course, there were no officially documented deaths associated with these curses. For now, would you dare to visit this tomb? Write in the comments under the video. Ancient Jewish curses. In ancient times, on Mount Ebal in Israel, archaeologist Adam Zertel discovered a lead tablet dating back to the mid-13th century BC. Recently, an international team of scientists, including Czech specialists, revealed the mystery of this tablet using X-ray tomography. Daniel Vavrek, a participant in the study, said the text was written on a lead sheet, which was then folded to hide the contents. The size of the plate is extremely small, only 2 centimeters in length and width. Previously, similar findings shrines were opened mechanically, but this led to their damage. The new method made it possible to decipher the text without harming the artifact. Researchers have determined that the hidden text is written in Proto-Hebrew and dates back to approximately 1400–1200 BC, making it the oldest known text in this language. The text contained ancient curses. One of them read, "You're cursed by the god YWH, Yahweh." This discovery is of great value for history and archaeology, proving the deep roots of written culture in this region. Mastabas in the necropolis of Saqqara. The ancient Egyptians, famous for their majestic pyramids, also built mastabas, truncated tombs. More than 160 such funerary structures containing embalmed mummies were discovered in Saqqara. Not all of these tombs contain grim inscriptions, but some contain brightly colored hieroglyphs warning burglars. Archaeologists claim that those who dare to invade these sacred spaces will suffer the wrath of the gods. According to one prediction, the gods will punish violators by twisting their necks like geese, promising a painful end. One such curse can be found on the mastaba of Kentucky Ehehe, which states, "Those who enter this tomb with unclean intentions, I will grab them by the neck like a bird. I will fill their hearts with fear." Thosis gold. An ancient treasure is considered one of the most famous cursed objects in history. 2,000 years ago, the ancient French city of Toulouse, known to the Romans as Tolosa, was home to the Gallic Volca tribes. When the Tolosa Gauls returned home from campaigning and plundering in the eastern Mediterranean, they found the Romans welcoming them, lured by the huge reserves of gold they had brought with them. It is said that this loot was cursed, and the Romans who took possession of the gold were never seen or heard from again. The treasure is rumored to still be out there somewhere, with many claiming it lies at the bottom of a lake in the south of France. However, treasure seekers fear the fate that could befall those who dare to rescue it. Ancient jar with curses. Archaeologists have discovered a 2,300-year-old clay pot in Greece containing the bones of a butchered chicken that was apparently used as part of a curse to paralyze and kill 55 people in Athens. This find sheds light on the use of magic in ancient Greece. Ancient Greek curse tablets, or thin sheets of lead containing spells against a specific person, were common. They were often buried underground by those who wanted to curse another person. Lead signs were often made with nails to make holes. Also in this case, a large iron nail was pierced through the pot containing the bones. The archaeologists indicated that all of the outer surfaces of the pot were covered with text with more than 55 names. The nails symbolically limited the abilities of the victims of the curse. Archaeologists have determined that the chicken was slaughtered as a part of a ritual. It is suggested that those who used the magic wanted to transfer the bird's helplessness and inability to defend itself onto those they cursed. The researchers explained that the chicken's unscrewed head and pierced lower limbs suggested that the corresponding body parts of the 55 unfortunate people would also be affected. According to Le Monde, the pot's location in a building used by artisans could mean the curse was related to workplace conflict. At the time, Athens and the surrounding area experienced political upheaval after the death of Alexander the Great. Curses text. Curses written on clay shards in the shape of a human figure date back to around the 24th to 22nd centuries BC. These ancient texts, executed in the form of various hieroglyphs, served as a kind of magical protection against the enemies of Egypt. The Egyptians wrote down the names of their opponents on fragments of dishes and brought punishment on them, cursing them to the 7th generation. After this, fragments of objects were broken and buried in the ground or left in places intended for rituals. These curses could contain cruel wishes, such as killing enemies with a knife or spear and other types of painful death. Tomb of Ankhtifi. Ankhtifi, a nomarch of ancient Egypt who lived around 2100 BC, left behind a unique legacy. Although his status was below pharaoh, Ankhtifi was careful to leave an ominous warning on the walls of his tomb. It says that any ruler who encroaches on his tomb will be rejected by the falcon god Kemen. In addition, a curse will fall on the descendants of the offender, predicting them the lost inheritance. Modern archaeologists who examined the tomb were not afraid of these predictions, but it seems that even robbers in ancient times did not dare to touch the last refuge of Ankhtifi. The Chained Oak. One of the most famous curses in English history is the legend of the chained oak. According to history, one dark autumn night in the 19th century, the Earl of Shrewsbury traveled in his horse-drawn carriage along an old forest road to his family estate at Alton Towers, Staffordshire. Suddenly, they came across an elderly woman standing in the middle of the road. The lady asked the Count for money, but he cruelly rejected her, refused to help, and demanded that she get out of the roadway. Then the woman cursed the Count and his family, saying that with every branch falling from the famous old oak tree on their estate, one of his family members would die. The curse came true within a few hours, when one of the Count's family members unexpectedly died, shortly after an overnight storm tore a branch from an oak tree. This convinced the Count of the reality and power of the curse. He ordered his servants to chain the branches of the tree to prevent them from falling. Until now, the venerable old oak tree remains in its old rusty chains. Tomb of Senenmut I. Senenmut I, the no-march elephantine during the 12th dynasty, also left behind a formidable message on the walls of his tomb. Its purpose was to protect the offerings intended for the god whose statue was located inside the tomb. The inscription speaks of severe consequences for those who dare to touch these sacred gifts. Whoever encroaches on them will suffer terrible torment. His hand will be cut off like a bull's. His neck will be twisted like a bird's. He will lose his position. His son will not have any position. He will have no home in Nubia, no grave in the necropolis. His god will reject his bread. His flesh and the flesh of his children will be consigned to fire. The corpse will not find peace on earth. I will pursue him like a crocodile in the waters, a snake on the earth, and like an enemy in the necropolis. Thus, even the most daring archaeologists should think twice before visiting this tomb, because the spirit of Senenmut I may begin to hunt for them. Corpse for damnation. Why were curses placed in tombs in ancient times? Often, the deceased and the performer of the ritual did not know each other. The dead man's body served only as means to transmit the curse to the forces of the underworld, who then carried it out. There is evidence from the 4th century BC that some practitioners believed that the spirit of the deceased remaining near the grave after burial could perform a curse. In both cases, the dead were seen as agents capable of influencing the curse, being intermediaries to subterranean forces or active forces in their own right, capable of interfering in the affairs of the living. Of particular interest in curse rituals were certain types of deceased whose souls were considered especially restless and changeable. The graves of such people were especially suitable for supernatural use. These included people who died before term, for example, infants, children, women who died before childbirth, and those who died from violence. For both groups, sudden death meant that they left unfulfilled without living through the standard life cycle. Their spirits were especially outraged and thirsty for revenge. On the island of Paros, a child's grave was found with a tin figurine pierced with 7 iron nails, his hands behind his back, his neck in a tin noose. On the figurine was the name of the person, Theophrastus. Tomb of Hathor. Hathor, the famous Egyptian traveler of the 6th dynasty, also did not remain aloof from the fashion of leaving curses in tombs. In his last refuge, he left an extensive inscription in which he told about his travels and knowledge about another life. But at the same time, he included in the inscription a stern warning for anyone who dares to disturb his eternal peace. The curse goes like this: I will seize you like a wild bird and bring you to justice, and you will be judged by the great God himself. For a modern person, such words may not seem very scary, but for the ancient Egyptians, this was a real curse that it was better not to mess with. During the Pyramid Age, being cursed by the great god was considered one of the most terrible curses. Curse of Carlile. At the center of the underground passage in the city of Carlile is a 14-ton granite boulder. The Curse Stone, as it is called, was installed as a part of the new millennium celebrations in 2001. Hundreds of words are engraved on the stone, part of a curse composed in 1525 by Archbishop Dunbar of Glasgow to ward off the ravers who pillaged along the borders of England and Scotland. Following the stone's installation, press coverage included floods, a foot-and-mouth epidemic, a large fire in the city, calamity and a terrible season for the local football team, all of which occurred just a few years after the stone's placement. Opponents of the stone, including a local councillor, demanded its removal, citing a curse. The local White Witch stated that removing the stone would only acknowledge the reality of the curse and therefore increase its power. Tomb of Senenmut. Senenmut, who served as chief architect and royal advisor to Queen Hatshepsut, left a significant mark on the history of ancient Egypt. Although some sources claim that there may have been a love relationship between him and the queen, the authenticity of these rumors remains unknown. However, the tomb of Senenmut, located not far from the burial places of Hatshepsut and her husband, testifies to his high status and proximity to the royal house. The tomb is surprisingly well preserved to this day, and archaeologists discovered a strict curse in it. The following warning was carved on the walls: "Anyone who harms my image will be denied the right to follow the king of his time, will not be buried in the Western Cemetery, and his life will not be recognized on this earth." Curse of Braganza. The royal house of Braganza ruled Portugal and its overseas possessions from 1640 to 1910. The Braganza family curse is perhaps one of the most famous in European history and is mentioned in many historical documents. According to the history of the curse, it began during the reign of King John IV of Portugal, who reigned from 1640 to 1656. It is said that King John attacked the Franciscan friar who approached him asking for alms. The young king pushed the old man away and ordered him to get out. The angry monk then placed a curse on the king, saying that every firstborn of his royal line would die before ascending the throne. The curse came true. All but 3 of the firstborn men of the house of Braganza died before they could become kings. Tomb of Hathor. Mastaba Hathor, located in Saqqara, became the final resting place for a high-ranking official from the times of the Old Kingdom of Egypt. This burial site, like many other Egyptian tombs, is decorated with hieroglyphic inscriptions telling the story of the life of Hathor. But the peculiarity of these inscriptions is that after the biographical part, they turn into a short but powerful curse. If anyone enters here having committed unworthy acts or after intimacy with women, then he will be judged with me at the meeting of the great god. Despite the many years that have passed since the creation of this curse, we hope that it has not brought harm to any modern researcher or visitor to this ancient tomb. Curse of the Vampire. In the depth of the Andes, among ancient ruins, archaeologists stumble upon an unusual burial. The crypt, similar to the grave of a vampire, has been hiding a secret for centuries. The body, covered with strange symbols, lay in an untouched coffin, and next to it was a set of pointed objects made of stone and bone. Local legends speak of an ancient sorcerer who, in the guise of a vampire, frightened the inhabitants. According to legend, his spirit still wanders the ruins, seeking a victim to avenge the disturbance of his world. Legend claims that whoever dares to disturb this crypt will fall under its bloody curse. From the moment this burial was opened, strange events began to occur. Researchers encountered strange diseases and unpleasant accidents, reinforcing fear and superstition among the local population. Such a burial challenges many archaeological beliefs about the ancient civilizations of Peru and opens a new page in the study of Andean rituals and beliefs. Today, archaeologists and historians are trying to unravel the mystery of this place, trying to separate truth from fiction, reality from mysticism. Despite the fact that legends about vampires originated far from South America, do you believe in ancient curses? Would you be brave enough to take part in excavations and explorations of cursed places? Write about it in the comments under the video. I'll be interested to read. Share this video with your friends and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your views. Bye everyone!